I spent 12 years at NPR covering mostly viruses, and they would send me around the world. What was really surprising to me and why I went on this journey to learn this other way of parenting was when I came back to San Francisco and I tried some of these techniques and methods. They worked amazing on my little girl.
So what are some of these tips? I mean, you summed it up with an acronym of TEAM.
Yes.
What is TEAM? And let's make them practical for people.
So the first thing, T, is this idea of a lot of the Western relationship, parent-child relationship, is based on control. But E is a different way. E is...
And the next one is autonomy.
Yeah, this one's huge. If you could just change one thing in your child's life, that would be...
M, I guess. We've sort of talked about this a little bit.
Yeah,
in
it kind of puts it all together. The M is so praising is a really interesting topic that's very unique in Western society. In my entire travels, I've never seen a parent praise a child. It's not necessary.
Okay, we do video games. It's 7 to 8.
Every day?
Have your homework done.
I would cut out every day.
Oh, I can't. Yeah, no.
But they don't need it.
I don't. Well, if parents are listening to this and they have a 16-year-old addicted to their phone, what are the tangible things they can do in the next 1 month to sort of help?
So here's how it works.
Welcome to The Knowledge Project, a bi-weekly podcast exploring the powerful ideas, practical insights, and mental models of others. In a world where knowledge is power, this podcast is your toolkit for mastering the best, what other people have already figured out. I'm your host, Shane Parrish. Before we dive in, I have a quick favor to ask. If you're enjoying the show and listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or another platform, please take a moment and hit the follow button. The more followers we have, the better guests we can bring on to share their knowledge with you. If you want to take your learning to the next level, consider joining the membership program at fs.blog/membership. As a member, you'll get my personal reflections at the end of every episode, early access to episodes, no ads, exclusive content, hand-edited transcripts, and so much more. Check out the show notes for a link. Today, my guest is Michaeleen Doucleff, author of Hunt, Gather, Parent, and a global explorer of parenting practices. Her work takes us on a journey across cultures, revealing profound insights that challenge our modern assumptions, about raising children. At the heart of her discoveries lies the acronym TEAM: Together, Encourage, Autonomy, and Minimal Intervention. These 4 principles draw from the wisdom of Indigenous communities around the world, offering a roadmap for fostering resilience, independence, and emotional well-being in our children. She shares her observations on how different cultures approach parenting and how their practices can help alleviate the burdens we place on ourselves and our children. We also explore the role of technology in modern parenting and its impact on our children's development. She offers practical strategies for navigating this digital landscape and fostering meaningful connections within our families. It's surprising how often we give our kids orders. Do this, don't do that. And in this conversation, you'll learn a better approach that encourages critical thinking, empathy, and problem-solving skills that works on toddlers and teens. I tried to make this episode as practical as possible, so while we learn insights from other cultures, how do we put them into practice in our culture? Michaeleen shares insights on how we can create an environment that allows our children to take appropriate risks, learn from their mistakes, and grow into confident, capable individuals in a world that sometimes pushes back. Listening to this episode will give you another perspective on parenting that draws from the collective wisdom of cultures around the world. As with anything, take what works and ignore the rest. It's time to listen and learn. I want to start with our parenting. Have we collectively lost our way as parents?
Western society has kind of veered off the path, and kind of gone into this valley of strange parenting valley where we've kind of lost sight of what kids actually need, what the parent-child relationship actually needs to really function.
What's different?
So there's so many things that are different. One anthropologist said that there's about 40 to 50 things that we do as parents that you can't really find anywhere else except in places that have westernized. And then there's 4 or 5 things that we are really missing that are really key to raising a child that you enjoy being with, raising a child that's helpful and respectful and confident. I mean, that's really, if you look at our data, right? In Western society, we have this epidemic of children who are anxious, who have kind of lost confidence. And then for sure, we have children that like we struggle to get them to help, right? And be helpful around the house and kind of work together as a team. And so there's a couple of things that we're not doing that really support that.
How did we get here?
It's a big question, but it dates back to like probably the 1500s in Europe. It actually, one scientist thinks and has this whole theory and book about how it dates back to the Catholic Church. We could talk about that. But in general, what's happened is we've lost the parenting teachers. That's, I think, a really key aspect of it. That traditionally, you have a child, often very young, in your 20s, and your parents or aunt or neighbor would teach you how to raise that baby. And then by the time you have your second or third baby, you kind of know, right? But now, like me, when I had my daughter, basically handed me this baby, sent me home, and it was like me by myself.
Good luck.
Good luck. Exactly. They, my husband always says, like, we took all these birthing classes, but he was like, why didn't we take all these parenting classes? Like, now what do we do? Now that it's, so that I think around the 1700s is then when that really started to get going, losing this kind of the teachers. And then parents started turning to the medical industry and parenting experts. And you can see the progression of like, what do? We don't really know what to do. And so parents are hungry for these they were pamphlets basically from orphanages that doctors had made just to like say, how do you raise like 40 kids, right? And they turned into these like parenting manuals and books that were very popular because parents stopped really knowing what to do. Parenting books today, you can trace all the way back to those pamphlets. It's really incredible. And of course, they weren't the way you raise children in a home, in a family. They were for these institutions, basically.
I think I remember listening to one of your interviews and you mentioned like the number one sleep book is by some dude in the 1800s who didn't even have kids.
Yeah, he was like a sports writer and he wrote about golf, I think. And he was also super into guns and he actually like blew his hand off and stuff. And he like, I think he saw like there was like this market for parenting advice. And he wrote, like he was one of the first ones to really write about sleep training, which is totally crazy, like around the world, like leaving a baby to cry. And it's a very unique style. And he was kind of one of the first people to suggest it and recommend it.
Can we come back to like the Catholic Church and sort of like we're not taught how to be parents anymore? Is that a byproduct of like all of us working more and living in a busier society, or is it?
The theory is, and it's really fascinating, was that before the 1500s, people in Europe lived like people everywhere in the world in these big kind of clans or groups of like family, like big, and not like all one house, but kind of in the same neighborhood. And it was, it was like communal living, right? And this is how children were raised for thousands of years in these kind of big groups. And there's a lot of data to support that. And that's how Europeans were doing it. And then the Catholic Church came along in about the 1500s and started having these laws to prevent close cousins from marrying and having children, which is totally legitimate, like biologically. You don't want to marry your first cousin and have a child. But over time, they started extending it out to like second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth cousins. I mean, you and I are sixth cousins, right? But we're not related at all. And it's whether this was intentional or not, what it did was it broke up this like big family living, right? Because like you couldn't marry anymore into these groups. And it really like took intergenerational living and squashed it down slowly and slowly to what we now think of as like the nuclear family. So you go from living in an environment where, as a mom, I would have clearly an older sibling, I'd have an aunt, an uncle, I'd have a cousin, I'd have all these people that are like helping me. And I would be watching as I grew up, other children being raised, right? That's a big element too, right? Like by the time I was 16, I probably had seen like 5 children get raised from somebody in this big group, right? And so if you look around the world, that's how people learn to parent. That's how this skill, the craft is like passed down through watching. And then when you have your own teaching. But if you squash down the family into like mother and father only, and you're right, one parent is out of the home a lot, or two parents are out of the home, then you no longer watch people being raised. Maybe you get one kid, one sibling, right? And then you don't have any helpers. And this professor at Harvard has like tracked down the rise of the nuclear family correlates with how long ago the Catholic Church was brought into a society. And so Europe is the longest, and you see this very strong nuclear family. And then other parts of the world, it's been introduced more recently, and you still see, intergenerational living and these big family units. But it's not the only factor, I think. Lots of other things have come about to kind of support the creation of the nuclear family and the reduction of the people in our lives raising children.
And we have this saying, right? Like it takes a village to raise kids, but it sounds like we don't actually create the village anymore.
That's right. And it's funny because I always say like, it doesn't take a village. It takes like 5 extra people. Like, because if you look in some societies, so they're called alloparents. This is what scientists call them. They're people in children's lives that are just as close to the child and just as important to the child as the mother and the father. They're other parents, basically. And if you look, in most societies, children have like 4 or 5 of these, very close. In some societies, they have like 12 or 15, but they're not very close. But there's amazing studies in some societies where like a baby, they'll track like how many times a baby is passed around to a different person in like an hour or 2 hours. And it's like something like 10 or 11 people in like an hour, like just regularly. Think about that. Like when you had your kids, like if you had 10 people like constantly helping you hold the baby, feed the baby, like how much different your life would have been.
I'd have a lot more kids.
You'd have a lot more kids, and you'd have a lot like less stress, right? When I was traveling with Rosie, my little girl, we were in Tanzania, and we were with these women they had the little ones, the babies and the toddlers, because the other ones were at school. And it was a group of like 6 women, and they would spend all day long together helping each other with the toddlers and the babies, like all day long. I'm talking like 10, 12 hours a day. It was amazing, right? From the standpoint of like social support, right? And then I got back home, and it was just me like in this condo with a kid. And it was the difference was so stark.
So before we sort of cover how we undo all of this, like what did you learn? You traveled around the world, you found 4 different tribes that all taught in a sort of different way. What are the key lessons that came out of that? Why is that important?
I'm a reporter, and I spent 12 years at NPR covering mostly viruses, and they would send me around the world. And I started to notice while I was traveling that parents didn't seem to have the same struggles as we did. There were clearly struggles. There's struggles everywhere. I don't want to romanticize it. But what was really surprising to me, and why I went on this journey to like learn this other way of parenting, was when I came back to San Francisco and I tried some of these techniques and methods, because that's really what they are. They worked like amazing on my little girl in urban San Francisco. Like it really surprised me how quickly our relationship improved. She was like 2 at the time when I really started to try this.
So what are some of these tips? I mean, you summed it up with an acronym of TEAM.
Yes.
But let's make them, what is TEAM? And like, let's make them practical for people.
So the first thing, T, is like this idea of like together, that humans, Homo sapiens, are these incredibly social creatures. That's what separates us from like other Homo species, is that we are social. And not only that do we want to be with people, we want to help people. And children are born wanting to help. Everyone knows this in our society. And so the first thing is let your children help you, even when they can't do it, right? So we have this, there's studies that show this, like American parents are asked this question of like, you're doing the laundry and your little 2-year-old comes over and starts throwing the clothes like all over the place. Like, what do you do? And the American mom says something, the European American mom says something like, I get mad because she's making a mess and I tell her to go play, right? Or I tell her to go watch cartoons, right? And then they ask the same question to a Maya mom. And my mom say something like, I get kind of mad because she's making a mess, right? It starts off kind of similar. And then she says, but I'm really excited that she wants to help with the laundry. And so the Maya mom sees the little toddler's mess as this like sign of interest in helping, right? It's a very different view of the child, right? It's a very pro-social view. And then she says, so I start teaching her how to do the laundry. And one of the moms even says that the little girl's like sometimes balls up the laundry, and she says, I can see she's trying to fold it, right? Where I would just say she's balling up the laundry and making a ball, right? This, the other view is that she wants to help, that we are these social creatures, and we have this huge desire to help, starting off just from day one. In many, many parts of the world, parents immediately say, yes, come help. And keep the child there and have the child at least watch or give the child a very small task to do. And so that's really the T. Never turn down a child's request to help. Like when I was getting ready for this podcast, like Rosie wanted to do my hair, she wanted to do my makeup. And it was like, yes, my job as a parent, I see, is to find a way that she can actually help. And the Maya families have some saying about it. Like it's your job to find the purpose in the child's life, to find the opportunities for the child to have purpose. Don't push them away, because if you keep pushing them away, by the time they're 7 or 8 and they actually can start kind of helping, they're not stupid. They're like, that's not my job. Like you've pushed me away for 6 years. Why would I help you now?
Yeah.
And there's data that show that that's kind of what happens, that kids, they learn their place in the home. Is my place playing and watching playing video games, watching TV, or is my place like helping with dinner, helping with the laundry, helping?
And unlearning that is hard.
I don't think it's as hard as we think it is. But again, I think you have to change your view of the child, right? You have to, instead of just saying, oh, he doesn't want to help. He never helps. He's never going to help. Don't ask, right? Can you imagine, right? If somebody said that at work, don't ask him. He's no good at this. Like how bad that would make you feel, right? So it's like actually starting to see there's a little flame inside the child that actually really does want to help. I think you can turn it around.
Well, let's E for encourage.
Oh, E.
Yeah.
So E is this idea that like a lot of the Western relationship, parent-child relationship, is based on control, that the parent tells the child what to do and they're supposed to listen because they're the child.
And you're the authority.
Right. And that's kind of just set. But E is a different way. E is, we're going to encourage children to do the right thing. And really, we're going to get them to figure out what the right thing is themselves. And every time you try to control a child, you create conflict. You risk creating conflict because either the child's going to get mad because they don't want to be told what to do, or you're going to get mad because they're not doing it, right? And so another way of doing it is like, okay, I'm going to guide you. I'm going to encourage you to do the right thing. And you know what? It's okay if like sometimes you don't, because this is the long game. But I'm going to use all these tools I have in my toolbox to get you to learn to figure out what the right thing is, to learn to think. When I went traveling, I knew there were like tools that cultures use to get children to figure things out, and instead of just telling them what to do. But I had no clue how many there were. There's so many. It's amazing. And they're very subtle, but they can really change like the whole dynamic between the parent and the child. What the E does, the encouragement, is it gets the child to feel like I'm making decisions for myself. I'm in charge of my life. My mom has confidence that I can do it. And so there's this ease that starts to happen with the parent and the child.
So what are those tools?
So one of the amazing tools with smaller children is stories. Like there's good evidence that humans are really made to learn through story. And when we were actually with the Hadzabe, this hunter-gatherer community in Tanzania, they were using stories to teach me the rules. So when we got to the camp, they didn't just list off, very like American, be like, here are the rules. And like, like, this is what you can do and you can't do. No, around the fire, they would tell these stories. And some of them were about where you went to the bathroom, and they would say things like, this isn't about you though. Like this, even though it was clearly about me, or they sang songs that had stories in them for children. And so this is a way of like putting the ideas into the child's mind in a way that, one, they can really understand, because young children don't understand logic, but also like a way of like, again, they're going to figure it out through these stories. So that's a huge one for younger children. Even for younger children, there's all these ways of like asking questions, telling them consequences, kind of these little puzzles that you set up for them. Another big one is the environment, like just setting up the environment so they can't get themselves in trouble or they're less likely to, right? The list goes on and on. There's some beautiful examples. Like when we were up in the Arctic, Rosie was kind of like throwing these rocks up in the air like this. And the little 9-year-old, Rosie was 3 at the time, and the little 9-year-old comes over and says, "You're going to hurt somebody with those rocks." And Rosie kind of sat there and like looked and then dropped the rocks.
And the 9-year-old walked away. Like it wasn't
No, it's and that's what the parents do. It's like, I think if Rosie was throwing rocks at kids, like then like it would be different. But it's like if you really stop and look at most of the situations, you don't need.
And one of the stories that would probably resonate with people you told in the book is how Rosie was keeping the fridge door open.
Yes. So when I first traveled up to the Arctic, the moms would tell me these stories, like to get kids to wear their hats in the winter because they would get frostbite on their ears, and they would tell them that like if they didn't, like that their heads would get chopped off, and the Northern Lights would use their heads as soccer balls. All these very kind of scary stories, and I was like, no, I'm never doing that. And so that's one of the things readers write into me about. Like one of the things are like, I could never do this, you know. And then when I got back, Rosie had the refrigerator door open, and I was sitting there, close the refrigerator door, just kind of nagging her, which is the big tool we use, right? Over and over again. And then I was like trying logic, the electricity, da, 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 da. And I was very frustrated with her. And then I turned to her and I said, "There's a monster in that refrigerator. And when he warms up, he's coming. Oh my gosh, he's coming out." And I kind of made it very dramatic and kind of fun. And like these stories are often kind of a wink in the eye. Like the kid kind of knows it's a story. And she like slammed the refrigerator door and was like, looked at me and she was like, "Tell me more, Mama. Tell me more about this monster." And she was, I think, 3.5 at the time, 3. And it like changed our whole relationship. We just started using stories for everything because the way we could communicate with her, like we weren't communicating with her otherwise. Oh, we had so many stories. And like when she's 8 and like around 6 or 7, she kind of knew the stories were fake and she kind of didn't want to hear them for a while. And then she wanted to again. Like it was like, because even as an adult, you like stories. We still use stories as a society, right? Absolutely.
We use them as warnings. We use them as fairy tales. We use them as...
we use them as entertainment, right? Like one of the scientists I talked to, because again, parents are very, like I was, like, this is too scary, But then one of the scientists I was talking to said, "Yeah, but look at a Disney movie. Like it's way scarier, than, because also I'm there. I can see. The point is not to scare her to death. It's to communicate. Parenting is about transmitting values."
Is there a difference between encouraging and sort of praising? Because we seem really good at praising kids. Like,
so
wow, you picked the green pen. Like, you're amazing. My child's a genius,
So praising is a really interesting topic that's very unique in Western society. You don't, like in my entire travels, I've never seen a parent praise a child. Like it's not necessary.
Is it more subtle or they just don't do it at all?
I think that there is some that's more subtle. Like you think the parent's not doing anything, but then you look and there is like these subtle signals that are happening, which also speaks to the fact that we could be a lot more subtle with children, Like
a smile.
Or like a pat on the shoulder, or when one of the moms said I would hug the child, to thank them. But praise really just came about in the last 30 years. Like I'm 47 and like my mom was really into praise and my dad wasn't. So I'm kind of right at the generation where the praise and there's this whole backstory to it about why it happened. But praise is a tricky beast. Praise can motivate children, but it can also demotivate. It's like, depends on how it's done, what context it is, the child. Does the praise actually kind of fit with what you're doing? And we have this sense that all praise is good and it's not. I tell parents, you can just stop.
Before we get to autonomy, let's double click on that. What's the difference between good praise and bad praise? And
I don't think psychologists know. And I think that's one of the problems. I think this over the top praise that you're talking about, I don't think kids know it's fake. And in some ways it's manipulative. I think the problem is we don't know. We don't know how much praise helps kids because it's an experiment. It's brand new.
How do we get in this experiment?
Maybe it was the 80s. There was this whole push from the California government. There was this idea that like the reason why kids started to use drugs and misbehave is because they had poor self-esteem, and that the way to help kids was to praise them. That's what gives them good self-esteem. But the data don't support it at all. There was no data. It's just, again, like these myths that kind of bubble up, but you don't need to do it. I mean, I think I come from a privileged position in the sense that like I've seen many, many families not praise children, and like the kids are like amazing and have enormous amounts of confidence and self-esteem. So it's like, it's just not required. I think what's more important and what motivates kids, and there's a lot of data to support this, what motivates kids is having them actually contribute to your life. Having them be part of your life and contribute in it. I mean, as a person who works, that you feel good and motivated when you help and you do something and you accomplish something. And that, I mean, there's tons of data in psychology to support. That's what motivates kids, not when somebody goes on and on about, oh my God, amazing.
So just to orient us where we are, you have the acronym TEAM, togetherness, and we've talked about encouraging. And the next one is autonomy.
Yeah, this one's huge. If you could just change like one thing in your child's life, that would be to give them 2 hours, an hour a week of autonomy. If you look at hunter-gatherer communities around the world, so, humans spent 200,000 years as hunter-gatherers. That's where our brains evolved. That's where we evolved, right, in this context. And so looking at hunter-gatherer communities around the world offers some clues kind of to how the conditions in which we evolved in. It doesn't say it exactly, but kind of gives you some clues. And if you look in lots of different continents, children have enormous amounts of autonomy in these communities, which implies that's how the child evolved, right? The child's brain evolved.
We used to have a lot of autonomy. I mean, I was walking to school at 7. I was walking like 2 kilometers almost.
Exactly. Like it wasn't that long ago in Western society that we had it. The evolutionary perspective kind of says that like we need it, and then there's this data that shows that kids that don't have it are more anxious, more prone to depression. And there's just tons of data that's like, we need autonomy. Children need autonomy. But I think parents don't know what it looks like.
So what does autonomy look like?
The best way to figure it out is to put your stopwatch on when you're with a child in the morning, at the grocery store, just somewhere, and give no commands to the child, no verbal instruction to the child for 20 minutes and see if you can do it. I mean, because scientists have done this analysis. I did this analysis like in different communities, and like in places where children have autonomy, parents give children like 2 to 3 verbal inputs in an hour. And I've done it on myself. I've done it with parents in San Francisco, and we were talking about like 120 verbal inputs per hour, just a constant stream.
Do this, do that.
Don't do this, say thank you. Like, I mean, you can see it. Like, it's just a constant praise, because it is a form of like kind of manipulating their behavior, right?
Which creates a power struggle in some ways.
Oh, can create for some children are fine. Some children appear fine with it, right? They just kind of go, I call them like turtles. They kind of go down into a little shell and kind of, okay, and some children, it's horrible. When I was writing the book and Rosie and I's relationship was really changing, if we were in a hard time and we were arguing a lot, I would do this. I'd put my stopwatch on or my phone, and I would say, okay, I'm going to be quiet. I can give her physical input, right? Like you're talking about more subtle, like some eye movement, I can move her, if she's doing something bad, I can take something, right? I can do physical things, but I can't, no talking to her. And it was amazing, Shane, like how quickly that improves our relationship.
What can I do? I have 2 teenagers to encourage autonomy. Like, what does that look like?
Well, it depends on where they're at, how much they're already doing on their own.
Well, I used to like send them to grocery stores on their own when they were like 7 and 8.
Yeah.
And, I got a lot of pushback for that from society.
Yes.
I used to let them walk to school, and I get a lot of pushback from society. One aside from this, it's so cute. My youngest came home one day And I had asked him to get a red pepper and he got a green pepper. And I was like, we'll go back to the store. And
That's
like, figure it
perfect.
out. And he was like, I think 8 or 9 at the time. And he goes back to the store and then he comes home. And I was like, well, what was the difference in price? And he's like, huh?
Oh,
and I was like, what did you do? He's like, I put the green pepper on the shelf and I took the red pepper.
Because why would it be any different?
He's like, I paid for it the first time. Like,
right, just a pepper.
Exactly. Wow.
That's so cute.
It's a funny story. It seems like society, I guess, has maybe it's just my feeling, I guess.
Oh, no.
But like it's pushed back on those things.
Oh, it's not just your feeling. There's huge data on this. And David Lancy, one of the anthropologists that I cite a lot in the book, calls it like the shrink wrapping of children, where we're just so afraid of their safety.
I'm not afraid of their safety as much as afraid of other parents and like
I
the police showing up at my door and like taking away my kids because I sent them on an errand, like
society as a whole is afraid of their safety. And there are parents that are like, I think we're kind of probably in the minority right now, but like, so Rosie's 8, she started going to the store. We live in that right now, a 6,000 person town. America, I don't know about Canada, but I bet it's the same as the safest it's ever been, like than when we were kids. And she's gotten pulled over by the cops twice. One time they brought her home in the back of the car. So, I mean, we've gotten pushed. There's absolutely a huge pushback. I've had to just be like, this is what we value. My husband and I have sat down. We're like, what do we do? We've thought about going to the police. So we dealt with the police and we told them and the police actually admitted she's fine.
Yeah. But other parents are
the
calling
other parents.
us.
It's the neighbors that were calling,
Yeah.
And so we've also made her look better, like the optics of it. She's on the bike now and, she looks more like she's in charge. There's a great organization called Let Grow. I don't know if you know about it, but it's all about empowering parents and children to have more autonomy. And they have these little licenses that you can print out that say like, I'm Rosie Doucleff and my parents allow me to go to these places.
Yeah.
And I'm allowed to talk to strangers. I'm talking to you right now. And so we printed that out for her. But it's hard, but it's worth it.
Well, I don't know. Like, what can I do?
So they're 13.
One's 13, one's 14.
I mean, autonomy is also like, what does the child want to do that they can't because they feel afraid or they feel like they can't do it because of parents or society or whatever, and then helping them kind of achieve those goals.
So I guess like maybe an example, like what comes to mind with my kids would be like, do I give complete autonomy, which is they come home, this is dinner time, you help out with chores and you contribute to the household, but I don't talk to them about homework. I don't talk to them about schoolwork. Or do I provide like a structure around this where it's like, let's go over what's due tomorrow. And I don't tell them what to do, like how do you think about that between structure and autonomy?
I think at 13 and 14, I would not help them structure their time. But if they don't have the ability, do you see what I'm saying? If
they're capable of doing it, let them do it. And if they're not, give the structure, but not the instructions.
Give the encouragement.
Right? Okay.
Like go back to the E.
So what would that look like? I'm happy exposing all my poor parenting on.
I mean, it's really fascinating, right? Because like we have this sense this is another weird thing we do is that like we think, okay, they're at this age, they need to do this,
mm-hmm.
And I would ask parents like, well, what age can they use a knife? And the parent would just be like, it depends on the child.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm like, kind of like, well, where are they with it? Right. Because one of the publishers said to me, well, my child's 11 and I opened up the back door and said, you're free now. You have autonomy now. And she just stood there. Yes, exactly. I'm telling you, like chickens will just stand there too if they've been inside a cage for like, and she was like, but she didn't want autonomy. And I was like, well, she's 11. She's never had that. So she can't just like, you can't just tell her to go run and play outside after 11 years of not, right? So that's why I'm asking you, like, where are they? But I think the idea is like, don't do things for them. Like ever. You don't need to. Especially 13, 14. It's like if they can't manage their time or they can't figure out, okay, what's next? Because that's a skill. There's actually a study looking at this in Guadalajara. It's a fascinating study. It looks at parents that are more westernized who manage the child's time. Okay, now you're doing dinner, now you're doing chores, now you're doing this, now you're doing that. And then a little more like teen parenting, like my book, like where the children manage their own time. In the study, these are like 9-10-year-olds. In the study, they show that the kids that are in that kind of more flexible environment take initiation. They start their homework themselves. They but it takes time. That's a skill. I mean, that's one of the things that I tell parents, like, when you're managing your child, when you're kind of their personal assistant and you're managing their time, like block hour by hour, you're kind of doing them a disservice because they're not able to learn this skill of like, what do I do next? Yeah. And like at your job, like my job, I sit down in the morning. It's like, well, what do I do? That's a big part of the job. Is like, okay, I got to interview this person. I got to set this email. I got to read this part. I got to write this part, right? And that's a skill that takes time. And so I would start. If I don't know, I'm not trying to say your child doesn't have that, but if I felt like my child didn't have that, I would start trying to teach them that. Like what do you have on your plate tonight? Yeah. What would you do
Questions.
next? Questions, exactly. Yeah.
Well, that was one of my favorite parts. Questions, not commands.
So we actually now have a little school. And so I love it because I get to say, I've tried these things on lots of kids, like as time has gone on, I've gotten more confident because I've tried them on all these kids at this little school we have. And like the questions work on every kid.
And the questions are designed to get them to think about the next step instead of you giving the instruction and telling them what to do.
That's right. We have one little boy who he's 11. He's very smart, great reader, great math, but he cannot do anything that I don't tell him kind of the next step. Like we were just making Valentine's Day cards and then hanging them on a tree for the teacher. And he was literally standing there with the 2 pieces of yarn and was like, what do I do next? And I was like, what do you think you do next? And it took about 5 minutes for him to figure out that he needs to tie it and put it on the tree.
And you just let him sort of
struggle with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. And the M, I guess we've sort of talked about this a little bit.
Yeah.
In
it kind of puts it all together. The M is like minimal interference. That's kind of a little bit what we're getting at. It's like, we think that good parenting, I thought that good parenting was maximal interference. Like I was always trying to figure out, okay, what do I tell Rosie next? Okay, I'm always looking out for like the next thing to say. And like one parent even told me, I forgot who it was, but she told me, sometimes I have to really hold myself back from interfering to see if they can do it. That there's this like magic moment where you want to jump in. And that's when they were like, but if they need your help, you jump in.
How do we learn that as parents? Because you've done it for so long, and then the temptation is obviously.
I tell parents, and this is kind of how I started it, was I would take Rosie to the beach. I would take her to an environment where she had a lot of autonomy. I know the beach doesn't sound like that to a lot of parents, but like I had taught her like not to go into the water. And then I would just sit there like hours and I would read and work and just let her live. And that was how I practiced it. You get the confidence that like, oh, the kid, I don't need to interfere so much. And when I don't interfere, she's so happy and she's, I can work and I can do my life. And like, I think you just have to try it.
And she didn't want to play with you?
She did want to play. She did want to play with me. I mean, especially if there was like not other kids around or something. I would just say, no, I'm reading right now. I mean, that's another thing is like most societies, parents don't play with children.
Yeah.
Like at all. Babies a little bit, but.
Otherwise, sort of like figure it out. Use your imagination. Be bored.
Yeah. Or there's other kids. A lot of times there's other kids around.
And now we're in a nonstop. I feel like I have to entertain you.
So that is another huge one. Huge difference in this is one of, I think, the most stressful things is like this feeling of what do you do with your time with your kids? Kids do not need to be entertained. They have not been entertained for like hundreds, thousands of years, 200,000 years. They do not need it. Like I said, like you can welcome them into your world and teach them how to be in your world. But when they're in their world, you can be there for together, but you don't have to do anything.
There's a lot of differences between the worlds of these tribes and our world.
Yes,
right?
there are.
Some of those differences are food.
Yes.
Technology.
Well, both of those are changing.
Culture. In terms of women's roles and whether they work or not and how they contribute. How do you think that affected how they're raising kids? Is that specific to that environment? How does it affect our environment? What's the same? What's different?
In the Maya community, in the Inuit community, which is, just north of us right now in Canada, there was lots of technology.
Okay.
And lots of processed foods.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, the Maya community less, but...
Like they're eating Fruit Loops for breakfast sort of thing?
The Inuit, yes. A lot of them, yes. A lot of them. But I mean, the Maya, there were more traditional foods kind of made every day and eaten every day. But they had, the Hadzabe, it was no technology, very little westernized processed food. So it was very different. So I think the food is an interesting question because like these really control children and control us kind of in ways.
What do you mean by that?
Like, I think technology is probably easier to talk about. I mean, it's designed to make the child use it, right? So it's not a secret, right? To shape the child's behavior and their activities. And so it's hard to be, as a parent, to just let that go.
So how is it impacting these kids though? Like kids today, I mean, my kids are maybe an exception, but most kids long before they hit 13, 14 have iPhones or iPads and...
Right. So the Maya, it's very fascinating. The Maya, many of the parents told me that they don't get a phone until they can pay for it.
But you can do that when everybody's in that
when it's
camp.
Collective.
When you're the only grade, in my grade 7.
So how did you do
home, well, I just did what my parents did. I was like, I don't care about Johnny down the street.
Yes,
right?
yes.
I care about you. But like, I feel that pressure. And in grade 7, that there's 2 kids in his class who didn't have a phone. In grade 8, he was the only one who didn't have a phone. And he feels it because he feels sort of like left out,
right.
Like these guys or these, my classmates are doing something and I can't be a part of it. The way that we've talked about this inside our house is like, okay, going into grade 9, you can have a phone, but you can't take your phone to school with you. And you have to wait at least a year before you have to show me that you can be responsible with it before you can have other apps on your phone that aren't sort of like games, right? Like, so before you can have Instagram, my whole path with this is like, I'm hoping schools ban phones.
By the time that
and
they probably will.
Well, Ontario came out yesterday and said they banned phones in all schools.
Fantastic.
Up until the end of grade 12, which I think is a great idea personally. And I'm hoping we get to this place with sort of like Snapchat and social media and some of that stuff before he gets there. So I'm like all about delaying, right? Like,
right. I mean, I think that is the word.
But also like they're growing up in a world where they have to coexist with technology, and we know how addictive it is. So, all of a sudden you're 18 and giving them a phone is also probably not the best strategy.
It's interesting because all the data show that when they get the phone, it makes them more lonely.
Yeah.
It makes them more isolated.
Well, it was my conversation with Jonathan that actually I was like adamant, no phone. I don't care what the pushback is. Like I'm going to slow roll this as long as I can. And he told me every year you can delay it. Makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. Because they have like a prefrontal cortex, right?
Yeah.
The Inuit were really interesting because they have tons of video games, tons of TV. Like the grandmother we were with was like, she spent like a week out in the land hunting caribou, and then she comes back, she's like, I got so much CSI to catch up on. Like there's this like very like the technology and never like completely squeezed out the other life, right?
How is that possible? Because it's designed, and I say this as it's designed to make it addictive.
It's designed to squeeze it out. There's no doubt.
If you have a 16-year-old boy or girl and they're on technology, like how do they limit that as parents?
I mean, I think some of it is like, and I'm not saying that you would know how to do this at all, because I don't want to give that impression, but I think delay is absolutely the right word for many reasons. But also it's about making sure that it is like you're talking about, like it is not the way it works in the brain is it narrows your desires and wants to this one thing. That's what happens over time. I mean, you see it with kids, right? It's like all they do is on their phone, right? They do nothing else. And I think that to me is like the key, and it's what you're talking about. It's like having these spaces and time and valuing of other things. And I mean, we could talk about this for like an hour. We could like go on and on about this. And I feel like we've kind of gone on a tangent, but
no, let's double click on this for a second. Like what are sort of the big points here? Because this is something when I talk to other parents, it's a hot topic to talk about.
Yeah.
When I talk to schools, it's a hot topic.
Yes.
People want to know more about it. They also want to know sort of like where they can take strides, right? So if parents are listening to this and they have a 16-year-old addicted to their phone, what are the tangible things they can do in the next 1 month or, today, the next month, the next 3 months to sort of like help?
Okay. So here's how it works. And this is what I'm just writing about right now. Our brains are these little prediction devices, right? And when I walk into an environment, my brain does this quick calculation of where am I going to get my rewards in this environment? I'm going to maximize the rewards. And kids are even more this way because their brains the prefrontal cortex is less evolved or less developed. If a child walks into the living room and every time they've walked into that living room for the last 5 years of their life, they've played on the video game, they've looked at their phone, their brain is just lighting up like firecrackers. They're going to use the phone. It's gonna exclude out everything else. They're never gonna pick up a book because the phone is designed to do that. So the only way you can bring back these other things into their life is to create environments where their brain knows they can't have it. You have to.
So does that mean like a technology-free weekend? Does it mean like
flip it around? So that's like the kind of the desire or like the way we talk about it now, like Sabbaths and hours where we're not. It's the other way around. Life is without it, and these are the times we have it.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Because then your brain relaxes. Because again, your brain is it's a prediction device. It just is predicting where do I get these things, and if it knows like I never get it.
If it's variable reinforcement, then you're
there's variable reinforcement. It's just the tip of the iceberg of the tools they use to create this.
But I mean, like if you're like, oh, I can get video games some days at 4, I can get it at some days at 6.
Oh, if you move it around.
If you move it around as a parent, you create this sort of like.
I don't know. It's interesting because you could think of the moving it that. That's a very interesting question to me. I've read both in these books. Like you should do it at the same time. So if you do it at the same time, the brain will know. The brain will know, and if you don't do it at that time, you'll get like.
So this is what we currently do, and like. Give me the best practices here because I'm making this shit up as I go. But it's like, okay, we do video games. It's like 7 to 8 if
every
you
day.
Have your homework done.
I would cut out every day.
Oh, I can't. Yeah, no. They learn a lot from video games. I mean, I would argue they actually learn a lot from video games.
Well, I mean, that's another thing. It's like screens are not screens, right? It depends on what they're actually playing, right? But they don't need it.
I don't. Well, There's an element of, you're right, they don't need it. There's an element of all their friends are doing it.
Playing those video games.
Yeah.
But I mean, they don't need it every day.
Oh, God. I think, if you were to survey parents, the fact that I give them like 8 hours of screen time a week is probably on the extremely low end.
Is 8 hours of screen time going to like hurt them in the long run?
Probably. This is what I worry about.
I mean, I think, again, it depends on what they're doing. It depends on the kid, depends on their reward center. There's all these genetics involved. And like, I have this incredibly addictive personality. Like I'm basically addicted to Gmail, right? Like me and Tristan Harris, or like I can get like, we'll play Hangman and I'll be like, play it again, So like for me, an hour a day playing video games wouldn't be good.
Okay.
I think for some kids it wouldn't be good.
Well, I do change what they play. So if they're mean to each other after,
there you
consistently. Go. So we've talked about this, right? Like we took away a certain video game a while ago. Because I was like, hey, and I warned them, right? I'm like, I notice how you guys interact after you play this.
Right.
I don't like it.
Right.
That's not what we do. And that's not how we treat anybody, let alone our family. And then it kept going. And I was like, okay, you just can't play this video game anymore.
So I think
and then it came back 2 years later.
The game?
Yeah. I was like, do you want to try again? Like, they're like, we want to play it. And I'm like, okay, but why we lost it, right? Like, so if it has the same impact, we're going to have the same results.
So I think you said like the key thing here, we always talk about time, hours of whatever screen, but it's like that, like, I think we need new recommendations from AAP, from all the societies, because an hour of screen time today can be so different, first of all, what you're doing.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And then it's so different than like an hour screen time when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Right. It's just not the same. So I think you have to like do exactly what you're saying. You have to like what happens during that hour of screen time? How does the kid behave? What do they behave like afterwards, right? Like, how does it make them feel? Like, why do we need to do things? Why do kids need to do things where they feel worse afterwards? Right?
Tell me more about this feeling worse. Is that like when I try to end it and they won't let me end it? Is it how they treat people? Like, what does it mean to feel worse?
I think it's
after?
a lot. I mean, I think you're doing exactly what I'm saying. It's like assessing like.
I'm really just making this stuff up.
But,
like I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just trying to think like, okay, maybe let's figure this out.
One thing is that just because a child wants it doesn't mean it's actually like pleasurable.
Of course.
Right. And so I think a lot of parents think that they want it so much that they like it. Right. And that's just wrong. That's based off like 50-year-old neuroscience.
So I'm going to push back on this slightly because when I intuitively hear that, I think in a different way, which is probably completely wrong, but I think, something they care about, a currency that I can use to manipulate at worst behavior.
Yes.
Right.
And I think lots of parents think that.
Positively reward behavior at best, maybe.
Right.
And so it's like the one thing in their lives where I'm like, okay, I have something that I know they want.
Yes. I think that's common. That's
okay.
very common. And I think I felt that way too about it at first. But then I was like, is it worth it?
Go deeper on that.
Like, okay, so we had like Rosie maybe like when she was 6, it was like starting like with, Netflix, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is insane, right? I mean, if you watch it, like it makes me feel insane to watch some of it. It's like so fast and it's so like psychedelic and it's just like, And we would, every night she would get some time and it would, like you say, it was like this currency, right? This like, reward, this like manipulative device. But then at the end of it, she'd be so crazy. And every night would be like a struggle and a fight. And like, she'd be like a different child. And it was just like, I don't think this is worth it. I don't need this. First of all, I can motivate her in other ways that don't make her scream at me and ways that don't feel like this struggle and don't make her hyper and it just feels like a waste of her time. I think I come at it more from the perspective of it's not hurting her, but actually she's going to feel better and have...
If she does something else.
Yeah. And it like lifelong better, because what you're doing is you're building habits.
Oh, totally.
Right? Like when I'm bored, when I want to relax, and I would even question whether it's relaxing for kids a lot, especially video games. I do this. Mm-hmm. Right? I could build that habit. I could build that habit in Rosie like that. But maybe better in her life would be like when I'm bored, I play the piano. Mm-hmm. I read a book. And she's never going to pick those things if she knows the other is available.
I have one kid who probably reads too much.
So,
if that's even possible.
I think most kids are not like that.
Yeah. I take away books as like a consequence, it's like, and he's like,
books, like paper books
and Kindle, like he's on the Kindle all the time and it's attached to my account. So I get these crazy Amazon recommendations. It's like based on your reading. I'm like, man, you don't know me. I'm not worried about AI taking over at all. Right. Then I open the Kindle and I'm like, oh, now I know where to get it from. But like, it's a currency. Coming back to technology. It's like, I know something that motivates him. I know that, hey, I'm going to, this is a natural consequence to your behavior. And then he's like, oh, you're the dad that takes away reading from his child, right?
But that currency to me is more valuable than like watching Netflix.
Does it matter if it's sort of like the same thing? If they're reading a book about the same show they'd be watching, do you think? Or
I think it just, again, it depends on what you value. What do you think?
Well,
like for a while, Rosie was kind of addicted to audiobooks.
Okay.
Like hours and hours and hours, like 6-7 hours on the weekends, of just listening. And to some parents, that would be like amazing. And I mean, I think that's better than watching cartoons in the sense that like she learned narrative structure. She learned an incredible vocabulary, right? Like, so that's what I'm saying. Like I had to like figure out, but then I could see it was like squeezing out other things and it was like creating conflict. Right. Like, so it's like, what do I value?
When it takes over. So this value thing is super interesting because it makes me wonder if a lot of our parenting is driven by like, we're trying to succeed through our children instead of putting our children in a position where they can succeed.
I think that it's
don't. Like, oh, you get into Yale. That's my success as much as your success.
And you're transmitting the value of that.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think we stop and think enough about like how our actions and what we say and what we the currency we use with children transmits values. So for instance, like I'm sitting there talking to one of my friends about Jonathan's book, about this topic with a mom of 2 children. And the 13-year-old comes over and shows us, look, Mom, look at this video of this gerbil. Like while we're talking about this topic. And what does the mom do?
Stops, looks at the video.
Stops our face-to-face conversation to look at this like TikTok video and like engage with it. And I just left there and I was like, what is that transmitting to the children in the room?
That they're the VIP, right? You're the...
And this TikTok video is more important than a face-to-face conversation with a friend.
And it's not something you're actively communicating, but it's something they're receiving through...
Oh, I think it is active. I mean, yes, in the sense that like
not directive.
I'm not saying, oh, the TikTok video is more important, but that's not how kids learn. Kids don't learn from what you say is important. Kids learn through practice and modeling. That is how kids learn. Everything. What
would be an alternative way to handle that situation?
I would say I'm talking to, this is important. I'm having a conversation with Michaeleen right now. You know, let's discuss this later. And then I would tell the child later, you know, number one, that's really rude it's a 13-year-old kid. Like they should know at that point that's rude to, interrupt in the middle of a conversation. Like I would tell Rosie that nicely, maybe not as mean as I just said it.
You would do that after, not in the moment.
I wouldn't do it in the moment. You would embarrass the child. You'd make a big scene. In the moment, it's more of a performative parenting device,
right?
Which is, again, what do you value?
They're less
me looking good as a parent.
Right. They're less likely to learn, but you feel better.
That's right. You're basically shaming them, right? But I would tell them in the moment, like, this conversation is important, and I'm transmitting the value of, I value a face-to-face interaction more than some gerbil video on TikTok.
Right.
But if you look around, Shane, you will see this everywhere. You will see parents actively valuing and modeling the love of technology. The reward system is really a value system.
Yeah.
The reward system in the brain is made in animals so to make sure they get food, it's sex, water, safety, right? But in humans, it can be hooked up to anything that seems valuable. And that's what children are learning. They're learning that this screen, these videos, this video game, this is what our society, this is what my family values.
It's so hard. Like I leave my phone in a different room when we eat dinner.
Yeah. Yeah. We have one phone and it's in a drawer.
And I feel it, right? And
you want to go over there?
I do. I definitely feel a pull towards it, right? Like
yeah. They call it motivational magnets.
Well, it's like, where's my phone? Like you don't have this
that's
thing
your
on
brain.
You. But it's interesting because a couple of weeks ago, my youngest came up to me and he's like, I like that you never have your phone at dinner.
I love that.
And I was like, I didn't even think you noticed. He's like, yeah.
Oh.
And like, it was just this moment of like, I was like, I was doing it because I wanted to pay attention to them. And my motivation was like less about, it's sort of communicating values, which is we need to chat face to face, but it was also about avoiding regret. I didn't want them. I always think about like, well, they're going to move out one day.
Yeah.
I hope eventually. And when they move out, I'm going to wish I was having dinner with them.
Yeah. And what was more important, checking your email for the under time or like.
And so all of these thoughts lead to like, I'm just going to leave. And I'm not, I usually am, but like, I'm not 100% confident that I can just like leave it in my pocket. And then
you can't.
But the other thing that I've started doing recently is when I'm with them, I put it on silent mode.
For sure.
And the only people that can get through silent mode are them.
Right. I mean, all these things that you're doing are transmitting the value of like, you care about interacting with them more than the phone.
Yeah, I didn't think they paid attention. Oh, at least one of them pays attention.
I think it's a fascinating observation. I'm writing a chapter now about how actually kids don't like technology as much as you think they do.
Oh, tell me more about this.
Because I just ask them.
But can they answer that? I mean,
I'm not talking about
what kind of car you want. You end up with Homer Simpson's car, right?
It's not that blatant, and you can actually find it in these like in conversations or in books. People will say people will like say what you just said. Like kids will say things like, "Oh, I really like this night because we're not on the screens." So kids. That's what I'm saying. Like But you can ask them. You can say like, well, what do you do on the iPad after school? I do this, I do that. And then one little girl said, without even me saying anything, was like, but I would do something more fun and more better if my parents let me. Oh, you don't want to actually be on that bed? No, I don't really want to be on the iPad. Actually, and Rosie one day said to me, like not that long ago, she said, I thought you wanted me on the Netflix.
Oh, interesting.
Because I kind of did, in the sense that like what you're talking about, using it as currency, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like pushing it at her. Right?
You need to find something.
You don't need it. It was really weird.
I was just
like,
joking.
Again, it's this question of wanting to pick up your phone and actually enjoying it and actually valuing it. And actually, like, I think most kids would rather do something else, but they are like, especially teenagers that have been on technology for so long. I mean, their brains are so wired to want it. They call them motivational magnets. The cues turn into these like magnets that pull you there, not the actual software, the cues.
Yeah.
And you actually transfer the value onto the cues. And it's this very, very, very strong pull. To get away from that, you have to protect the child from the cues.
What do you tell I don't know, like I'm picking random ages here, but like your 16-year-old or your 12-year-old that they can't watch a show on Netflix, or that's not what our family does or values, but then they go to school and everybody's talking about it and now they feel left out. They feel like they're not a part of something.
Right, right. And isn't it interesting how it's all about fear? Because we think it's about reward, but it's actually about fear, and the fear and the reward system are all enmeshed.
Yeah.
So I think at the teenage years, they really need to start to understand how it affects their brain.
Right.
And how it's manipulating their brain, kind of wiring up their reward system to prioritize it over everything else. Teenagers don't like to be manipulated. So I think you start there. You start with this conversation of how this actually works. One of the neuroscientists said to me, he has a 12-year-old boy, just gave him a phone. He gave him this like hour-long PowerPoint on what the phone does to his brain and how it works and how this thing called sign tracking and all this stuff. And then they sat down and they said, okay, he said, how much of your day do you want the phone to take up? Let's write it down. How much do you want? And I think the kids have done like 45 minutes a day, which sounds about what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
And he said, okay. And they wrote it out. And he said, now it's my job as the parent to hold him to that. It becomes more of this cooperation thing where they're like,
well, that's what it is, right?
Together.
Like you're effectively trying to come up with something with them, but you're still the parental authority.
Oh, I think absolutely.
But you move from
it's your house
to coaching.
Yeah,
right?
It's more guidance. But then I think that there's these rules that make sense just neurologically. Like no screens in the bedroom.
Yeah.
I mean, like we got rid of. Right now we have no screens after 7, and I try to hold it to myself.
I can't do that just because of homework too. Like they do their homework on technology.
Sure.
Now,
I mean,
like yeah.
Not,
but like they leave their phones in the living room. They're not allowed their phones in their bedroom at this point. This all changes.
But try it in the sense that like if you can. One of the neuroscientists who studies dopamine in the eyes told me 3 hours before bedtime. Yeah. And so I started doing, I mean, it's crazy, right? That's like 7:00, right?
Yeah.
And I started doing it like maybe in November. And Shane, I sleep like I've never slept before. I mean, I'm not kidding you. I'm like, I mean, I think kids will feel the same. I mean, it really affects the sleep. There's no doubt.
Is there a book you came across in your research that like parents of teens, sort of 12, 13 can be like, hey, before you get a phone, before we talk about technology, I want you to read this and let's have a conversation about it.
I would recommend watching Social Dilemma.
Okay.
Have you watched that? Have you guys watched that?
No.
Definitely watch that. I've heard of some teenagers tell me they've had to watch it in school. Like it's
interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
it's good. And
the same schools that don't ban phones.
I'm not sure. I haven't done the cross correlation data on that. But the problem is that parents don't know these things. Like parents, it's not like I say, like it's not an even playing field right now. The tech industry has all this knowledge and tools and goals about technology and how it affects your brain, and it affects children's brains more that way because of, they're not as developed. And parents have none of it right now. It's a really, really uneven playing field. And we're playing with these old rules of 2 hours of screen time a night. And
I try to be, I mean, personally, I just try it. Like the rules are interesting. We're trying to get away from rules into more like autonomy. if you will, within certain limits of
absolutely
how that goes. But I mean, it's just a nonstop struggle.
Right.
And I
It's
have
like-
great kids, so I can
they
imagine
sound
like
amazing.
if you had more difficult children, I can like some nights I go to bed and I'm like, man, I just won the Olympics, right? Nobody died today. Everybody ate food. This is a win.
And they were on the screen for an hour.
And you know, like some days I'm like, oh, I just don't care. I need a break, right? Like I need a.
I mean, it really is about setting up your environment. I mean, I said that earlier.
Yeah.
I said, like, you set up an environment where the child can be autonomous, and it's about doing that with the screens.
Well,
it's just going to be hard. It's just going to be harder because they are magnets.
I want to come back to this just before we end, but like, what have you learned about in not these tribes, but in sort of Western culture? What can we do for our environment that sort of at least adds friction to things, if not removes them as a possibility?
You mean for technology?
Well, for technology or anything, like what can we do to encourage autonomy in our kids through the environment? I'm a big fan of the environment is like the hidden hand.
It is.
I think James Clear said that the hidden hand that shapes your.
Yeah. I mean, like we said, like a prediction machine. I come into an environment and it's like, I know, like I'm predicting everything that I've done here in the past, especially with younger children. I mean, older children too. It's about empowering them so you don't have to say anything to them, right? It's teaching them the skills they need so that they can be autonomous in your environment. So you can either change the environment and get rid of everything, which is what we kind of tend to do with kids, but then you just leave them unempowered, right? Or you slowly teach them, you know? So does that make sense?
A little bit, yeah. I think it's just I'm trying to make it practical for
right. So give me an example of something that you've
like a house environment. Like what are the things? So like one thing that you mentioned that I picked up on, which I mean we don't do, other people may or may not, and I really try not to judge other people. Everybody's doing their best. I really
and
believe
every
that.
Kid is different. That's the thing too.
So but like having a TV in your room,
right,
or having something like so that's an environmental choice, right? Where you put the TV.
That's a parental choice.
And so if you put the TV in sort of the main floor, you end up with one sort of you're exemplifying one thing.
Right.
And if you put it in the basement, you're sort of like putting it out of the way. It's not a showpiece. And then the kids get more autonomy in a way because they have to go downstairs and like figure it out themselves and hang out with their friends if they want to watch TV. And so like I'm just thinking, are there any other environmental I would love to learn some. I'm sure everybody else listening would.
I think one of the things that maybe we haven't said explicitly that should be said is like, I don't think children can be autonomous with technology, some technologies.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Right. I don't think that they're capable.
I don't even think adults are capable.
Right. I mean, I'm not.
So use the environment to shape the technology uses, like screen time limits or app limits or something.
That's right. So like, let's take like Inuit hunting. One of the big goals is to teach boys, but now girls too, it's very mixed, to seal hunt. Mm-hmm. Okay. They have to do, many families have to do it. And like, you know, this is a skill you have to learn, right? Well, the seal hunt is crazy. Like, it is a crazy skill. You have to go out on the ice, poke a hole in the middle of nowhere and then they put a little tiny like feather in the hole and you sit there and you stare at it for 6 hours until the feather moves. And then you stab the ice. Okay, this is a very difficult task. Well, you can't just take a 6-year-old and tell him to go seal hunt. Yeah. Right? Well, what do? The dad explained it to me. He's like, when the kid can stay outside for 6 hours, then we'll take him with us. But we'll park them like way out because if they make noise, they're going to mess it all up. And then if the kid still wants to do it, then we'll slowly bring them closer. And it's like, I mean, I think that's how we have to think of technology is a little bit like seal hunting.
So a little bit at a time, demonstrate responsibility, and then...
Yeah, you delay it until they show a lot of interest and really want it. And then it's like, okay, well, where can you go in the seal hunt? You're going to be way out there. Right. And then you show me you can do that. And then I'll pull you in a little bit closer.
I guess that's kind of like what I've done intuitively, personally, which is like, okay, well, show me you can be responsible before we start adding more things to your phone.
It's exactly what you like. And delaying it, because the kid's not capable of standing over the hole. I'm not capable of 6 hours, right? Yeah. And it's like the parent's not going to stick them in that situation and have them fail. Well, I think if you put a phone, give the child a phone and stick them in their bedroom or the video game, because you're putting them at the seal hole to fail, right? And so it's not new, that this idea. I just think that we have to treat this thing as this tool that's like, kids can't learn yet. They don't have the mental capacity to sit over the hole for 6 hours. They don't have the mental capacity to carry a phone into their room and not go to bed. It's a slow process.
Well, yeah. And like everybody's doing the best they can. Every child is different. Every sort of like environment's different, but then like every broader environment's different too. Like
actually the community, the school.
A lot of schools are all technology now. There's iPads and computers and laptops.
And the school is crazy, which I think actually means at home it's more important to switch it around.
Go the other way. That's interesting.
They need to build these other skills. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm a big fan of Cal Newport, and he talks a lot about how like concentrating and doing this kind of deep thinking and stuff it takes practice.
We always end with the same question, but I'm going to use a slightly different version of it for you, which is, what is success as a parent for you?
So before I wrote the book, it was like what you're talking about, like Yale. It's like Rosie speaking Mandarin and going to Yale was this, like, and I don't even, but then when I wrote the book, I was like, success for me is Rosie growing up mentally healthy.
What does that mean, mentally healthy?
Not having tons of anxiety and depression and like feeling suicidal and like, just like enjoying life, like really enjoying life and enjoying our relationship, enjoying being part of the family, which I think is important for like mentally healthy kids. That means working, having a job, that means having a family, that means whatever that means for her. But like, waking up and being excited about the things she's doing in that day.
It's a beautiful way to end this conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time. Thanks for listening and learning with us. For a complete list of episodes, show notes, transcripts, and more, go to fs.blog/podcast or just Google The Knowledge Project. Recently, I've started to record my reflections and thoughts about the interview after the interview. I sit down, highlight the key moments that stood out for me, and I also talk about other connections to episodes and sort of what's got me pondering that I maybe haven't quite figured out. This is available to supporting members of the Knowledge Project. You can go to fs.blog/membership, check out the show notes for a link, and you can sign up today. And my reflections will just be available in your private podcast feed. You'll also skip all the ads at the front of the episode. The Farnham Street blog is also where you can learn more about my new book, Clear Thinking: Turning Ordinary Moments into Extraordinary Results. It's a transformative guide that hands you the tools to master your fate, sharpen your decision making, and set yourself up for unparalleled success. Learn more at fs.blog/clear. Until next time.